In this video, I'm going to show you everything that you need to know to get your custom artwork and logos onto your car in Gran Turismo 7. We'll cover everything from how to find and upload SVG files, how to compress those SVG files to get around that pesky 15 kilobyte upload limit, and most importantly, how to convert PNGs and JPEGs into SVG files so they are ready to upload into Gran Turismo 7. What's more, every tool and resource that I suggest in this video will also be completely free to use. Now, the advice here is going to range from beginner to advanced, but if you stick with this, I promise you'll be left with all the tools and resources you need to get your artwork into Gran Turismo 7. So, let's get into it. To upload custom decals to Gran Turismo 7, you'll first need to open your web browser and navigate to granturismo.com. From the main page here, on the top right, click My Page, where you'll be prompted to sign in with your PlayStation ID. Once you're signed in, you'll land on your profile page, and on the right of the page, you'll see the Decal uploader. Give it a click. And from here, you'll be able to open your file browser or drag and drop in files to upload to Gran Turismo. So, important restrictions. This is the main piece you need to pay attention to. You are only able to upload SVG files, so your JPEGs and PNGs aren't going to work here, and they have to be a maximum of 15 kilobytes, which is absolutely tiny, but with SVG, doable. Now, where can you find SVGs? You can find them on Google, basically any corner of the internet. A lot of brands and companies purposely put up their logo in SVG format because it's a great format for rescaling and resizing. For the sake of this demonstration though, I'm using Wikimedia Commons. So me being Irish, I want to find a shamrock. And then I can filter by file type SVG. I'll pick a nice simple one to start. This one should do. So click on it here. You want to be careful that you don't just go save image as, because you'll end up downloading it as a PNG, which isn't going to work for you. So just click through here, open in Media Viewer, and then click on the download button here. So as you can see, this has downloaded a SVG file for us that is less than a kilobyte in size. So we'll have no issues there. So we go back to granturismo7.com, open file browser, select our SVG, open, and then we'll have one chance to rename it before it appears in Gran Turismo 7, and click upload. That SVG file will now be available to you in Gran Turismo 7 in the My Items tab when you're editing liveries. So that's all well and good, but what do we do in the instance that our SVG file is over 15 kilobytes in size? So let's look for another logo here, one of my favorite guitar brands here. Not Taylor Swift, but Taylor Guitars. This is a logo I want to put in the game. So we'll go to File Type SVG again, and we'll click on this logo here. Now, I can tell by looking at this is going to be a much bigger file size than the Shamrock because there's a lot more objects, there's a lot more curves, and just general bending of shapes happening that is all going to increase the size of the SVG. So let's see what we're dealing with here. We'll open that in the Media Viewer. We will download it. As you can see, that is 19.1 kilobytes, which is over our limit. Let's see what happens if we try to upload that. You can drag and drop these in as well. Let's go to our desktop here, or downloads actually. Drag and drop. Upload. And you'll get this generic error. The browser you are using is not supported. There's nothing wrong with your browser. You can try other ones if you don't believe me. This is just a generic error that you'll get if your file is a little oversized, which ours is. So we're going to have to reduce the size of that. Now, thankfully, there is a great free-to-use browser-based tool called SVG OMG. Link for it will be in the description down below. So all you need to do is navigate here, open your SVG, and then you can see that we have already got a lot of compression going on. So this will roughly download at 85% smaller than it currently is. Now, you'll notice these numbers here, they're not accurate. Ignore them. This tends to be accurate, that the file is only 15% of the size that it was when it entered here. Now, you'll probably have a bunch of default settings enabled when you first open this tool. And the main pieces that are controlling the file size are the number precision and the transform precision. I like to put on multipass as well. So with this, we'll probably end up under the file size already, but it's a game of you need to lower this one by one, watching to see if the quality drops. So as you can see, number precision, we don't want to drop it down to the bottom here. We need to leave it up at 1. And that maintains enough of the quality for me to be happy with anyway. Maybe there's a bit of bending going on there. If we're being perfectionist about it, we can go for 2. And then with this one as well, we want to lower this as much as we can. And based on the way that this SVG is created, dropping the transform precision doesn't seem to affect the design of it at all. So I'm happy with that. That's going to drop it roughly by 40%. We will download. That's now 12 kilobytes in size. We'll navigate back here. We'll cancel this one. Open the file browser again. Upload our new SVG, the proper name this time. And there it is. No issues. So what do you do if you find an SVG file that you like, but you want to make small changes to it? Say, for example, you want to take this blue guitar and change it to a red guitar. Well, for that, you're going to need a design tool. Now, there's tons of options for you out there, but I recommend Figma. It's a bit of an industry standard design tool. It's relatively easy to use. There's tons of resources out there to teach you how to use it, and it's available for both macOS and Windows. There's a paid tier and a free tier, but for everything we need it for, we'll be able to achieve that in the free tier. So go ahead and download and install Figma. Once you have Figma open, make sure that you navigate to the home icon up here, go down to drafts, and then select design to create a new design file. Once you have your design file open, you can click and drag your SVG file in. There it is. Now to edit this, while the frame is selected, this is this bounding box that's surrounding our SVG, you can make your way over here to the right to selection colors. See all the colors that are on use, and say here is the blue, and we can click and drag this dot around to change the shade of blue, drag this piece around to change the color entirely. Let's go with a bit of a red color. So that will work nicely for us. If you want to select items another way, so once you have the frame selected, you just double click on the other piece that you'd like to edit. So in this case, the pick guard of the guitar. Make our way back over to fill again. And you know what, we'll make this dark, kind of black color. Great. You can zoom in and out in Figma by pressing the equals key or the minus key. And then you can click and drag around by holding the spacebar and click dragging around if you want to get in closer and say, edit the color of one of these volume knobs. Why not? Okay. Once you're happy with your edits, select the frame again. Make your way down here to export, click the plus button. From the drop-down options, choose SVG. And then save this to your desktop, whatever name you like. Even if this SVG has already been through SVG OMG, I highly recommend running it through it again, because Figma might attach additional metadata to your SVG file that will increase its file size. So if you want to ensure that it remains under the 15 kilobytes, run it through SVG OMG one more time. So what do you do if you have a JPEG or a PNG image that you want to upload into Gran Turismo 7? Well, for that, you're going to have to take your JPEG and drag it into Figma. And we're going to use Figma and some of the free plugins available to convert it into an SVG file. So to do that, what we do is we make our way down to our toolbar here, the Actions menu, click on that, make our way over to Plugins and Widgets, and we're going to search for a free tool called Free Vectorizer. So Free Vectorizer, there it is. Once you have that open, you just need to make sure your image is selected and click the Fetch Image button here. Now, without getting into too much detail here, I'm going to give you the basics of how to prepare this for Figma. Select Polygon, that will ensure the smallest file size. Then we're going to take the color precision control and we're going to drop it down point by point, similar to how we did it in SVG OMG. We are just looking for a point that the detail drops. Okay, so quite a bit there at number 4. Number 5, we still got the helmet strap. Any difference with number 6? No. Okay, so I think number 5 is probably a good place to leave it. Gradient step, let's check. Okay, and we aren't losing any quality really with gradient step at 0, so we'll leave it there. And now filter speckle. We want to move this one as high as we can without it distorting the image. So if we move it too far, it's just going to remove too much detail. So we're probably looking for a point somewhere between kind of 5 and 20, if I was to guess. So you can see at 22 there, we're missing some detail on the horns. We'll bring this down a bit. Or again, it's a little bit of detail missing on the horns there. A little bit. 10, 9. Yeah, so usually speaking, it works out best at between 5 and 10. You can go as high as 20, but it really depends on the complexity of your image. So all we have to do then is insert the vector, and it will paste it alongside our original image. We know this is our SVG because it's in a frame called SVG. Now we can export this immediately, but I wouldn't recommend doing that because you're going to be stuck with this white background, and I imagine you're not going to want that. So if you select your frame here on the left layers panel here, if you go to the bottommost layer, that is most likely going to be the background. You can check by making it invisible or visible again. Okay, so that's it. We tap delete and it's gone. Now, this will regularly cause headaches for you. We've got rid of the background, but there's still 2 little extra bits of background kind of sitting here. But if we go to delete them, they disappear. And the reason for that is these technically aren't background pieces. These are white shapes that are sitting on top of this larger black shape. So what we need to do is we need to use these to cut out a gap in the black shape. And we do that by selecting the white shape, holding down Shift and selecting the black shape. And then we make our way over here to the top right where we got these little 2 boxes together and there's a drop down arrow beside them. So click that and click subtract. Grand. Do not worry about this yet. I will get to that in a moment. We need to do the same for the other piece now. So we select it. We select the larger black piece and we can cut it out by using the keyboard shortcut also, Option, Shift and S. Now, what has happened here is by cutting out these smaller white pieces, we have pulled this black layer further up the pecking order, which has left all these other pieces behind it. So if we click and drag, you'll see they're still there. What we actually have to do is we need to move this to the back again. You can do it like this, or much more simply, you can press left bracket while it's selected and it pushes it to the back. Okay, and we'll zoom out pressing the minus key. And that should do it. Only one other thing we may want to change. So right now, if we export it as part of the frame, we're going to have these gaps on the top, bottom, left and right. And we may not want them because it might make it a little more difficult to kind of place this graphic inside the livery editor in Gran Turismo. So what we can do there is we can select everything. And we're just going to press Command G, so it saves as a group. We're then going to make sure it's selected. We'll press Command X to cut it out. We're then going to delete our frame by selecting it, hitting the delete key, and then we'll Command V our group back in. Now it's a group, so it should all export as one. So we'll select that, click export, make sure we set it as an SVG again, export group, and we'll call this Puka Cute. So we'll now go and check the file size of our exported SVG. So here it is on the desktop. We'll click on Get Info. And as you can see here, now it says it's under 13 kilobytes, but it also says it's 16 kilobytes on disk. I've seen this go either way when we've attempted to upload it to Gran Turismo 7. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We'll give it a try. So open file browser, Puka Cute SVG, open, upload. Okay, that one worked straight out of the box for us. We could have always put it back through SVG OMG to reduce the file size further if needed, but it looks like that did the job for us. So that last image was actually relatively easy to convert from JPEG into SVG. But what do you do in the case that you have a more complex image, something with a lot more detail on it? Now, you are going to be limited as to what you can do overall, but if you have something in and around kind of this level of detail, you might be able to convert it without losing too much quality. So we'll give it another try. It's the same method. We go over to our actions bar here. We open our free vectorizer. It should be in your history there, just available for you, save you having to search for it. Okay, and there we go. Now, I'm just checking the file size immediately this time. Give me an idea of how much work we're going to have to do to get this to the file size we need for Gran Turismo. So I'm going to keep track of these by numbers this time. So Puka 1 is going to be our first export. So this is us without having done any real editing on it to compress it any further. Now, if we go back into SVG OMG, open up our Puka SVG, play around with these as usual. Okay. Not surprised by that, given the fact that we made this with the polygon method. These won't bring it down any further. It should shrink it by about 60%. Okay, and we're actually already at 15 kilobytes. But we're a little over. We're 373 bytes over. So if I was to attempt to upload that right now, it most likely won't work. Yes, getting the same generic error. Okay, so we are going to have to compress this further. Now, how do we do that? So I'm going to explain a little bit of theory to you here now. Sorry, we're getting into more of the advanced technical side of it. But if I double click any of these elements and press enter, I will see all of the nodes that are attached with this shape. And basically every single shape on this Puka graphic has these nodes, and these nodes determine the shape. So if you move them around, it changes. If you delete them, it changes. But ultimately, the only thing that you need to take away from this is, just to give you an idea, is that for every single one of these nodes, your file size increases. So what we are looking to do here to compress this is reduce the amount of nodes in this image. So the easiest way to do this is to actually get rid of any excess pieces that you think you don't really need, that won't affect the final design too much. There's some of this, I don't even know what these pieces are. I'm just going to ungroup so it's easier to select the individual layers. So I think we can get away with deleting this. And you know what? This one here, all the spikes and the fur, it's cool, but it's not really necessary. And I think if we delete that, we will reduce the file size quite a bit. I can see it's maybe a little hard to see in the video, but there's an extra piece here, a little bit of shading that I don't think will be missed. There's another one here. We can get rid of that. Another one here. Oh, and these pieces here on the visor, we don't need them either. Okay. All right, so that's looking good. So that is where I would start. If you're still not at the file size, the next thing that I would look to do is to tidy up some of these additional nodes that aren't needed. Now, this can be a bit painstaking, but there's some low-hanging fruit that we can look for here. This gap in the helmet, I don't know what it is or why we'd need it, so we can actually delete it. So starting from scratch here, if you select the helmet, press enter, shows you all the nodes available. And then if you click on any one of these and click delete, it will actually break it, because what's happening here is the path that is containing that fill color is breaking, and you can think of it as almost like all the color is spilling out. So what we need to do is, instead of actually deleting the node, we need to ripple delete it by holding shift and delete, and then it will auto connect the node that was originally connected to that one to the next available one. So we're just going to shift delete around these ones here and reselect other ones as we go. And that closes our gap, and we can even readjust the shape of the helmet a little bit there. So we can do that at different points around this design. There's probably a lot of extra nodes in every shape. So you see there's two there doing essentially the job of one. And another there. So those are the first two methods for reducing the file size a bit. They're quite painstaking, particularly this one with all the nodes. But failing that, another thing that you can do is you can identify shapes that will be quite easy to recreate yourself. So the first one that comes to mind to me here is these two circles, or circles if you want to call them. But as you can see, that's 8 nodes. That's a further 8 nodes. And this could easily be 2 circle shapes that would be 8 nodes instead of 16. So let's move both of these aside for now. And we'll go down here. And we'll select our ellipse tool, hold shift and click and drag. It will draw a circle for you. If you don't hold shift, it will skew it, but shift keeps it nice and round. So we'll make that one about that size. Then if we click that, press Command C, Command V, we've now pasted a second circle on top. I'll explain why in a minute. We'll just Command Z so you can see it again. And we are just going to reduce the size of this one. Now, if we hold Shift, it will keep it round. And if we hold Option as well at the same time, it will keep it centered. So we can then press I once this one is selected, bring up the dripper tool and select the color we want it to be. And then do the same for the back circle. Delete these two as we no longer need them. So we've now got a shape that is much more simple than the one that was in place of it. And that principle can be applied to a lot of other parts of this design. Like, for example, the diamonds here. Like, technically speaking, these should only be 4 points. So what we could do for those is quite simple. We could just delete, bring out the pen tool. And we don't have to be exact. We can just do it nice and rough. So we click once, click twice, 3, 4, and then we just click back on the point that we started on, and that closes it. Now, select your move tool again, go over to fill, and then you can select the dropper tool so it is the same color as the other ones, and we just want to get rid of the stroke. Currently there's a little bit of an outline on it, so we just want to get rid of that. So we select it, come over here, click this minus button, and it's gone. So now you have this shape that has, how many is that? 3, 6, 8 vertexes again, versus 4. So what we can do is delete each of these other ones. And then we can click this one, so it's selected, and then while holding Option, click and drag, duplicate it, and bring it to other parts of the sword. So it's small gains, but over the course of the whole image, this will amount to quite a few kilobytes. So if you're within the ballpark, say if you have a file that is 20 kilobytes in size, you could get it down to 15 kilobytes quite easily this way. It can be painstaking, but if you start with these low-hanging fruit items, you'll end up in a scenario that it will get reduced nicely without damaging the quality too much. Okay, and now side by side that I showed you earlier. So as you can see, we've made a couple of changes. We've by no means damaged the fidelity of the design whatsoever. We've removed a tiny bit of detail, but we should be able to get it within the file size needed for Gran Turismo now. So we'll give that a try. So we will select our Puka Samurai again. Make sure we select the entire thing. Command G. We'll export it as an SVG. We'll call this Puka 2, just so we have track of this being the second one we've exported. Go back to our desktop. Now let's just do a quick file size comparison. So this one is 21 kilobytes, 25 on disk, and the other one was 23 kilobytes, 25 on disk. So this actually should be enough for us. If we bring this into SVG OMG, those little details that we changed should actually make the difference for it being under the file size now. Compress it the exact same way, download, and as you can see, this is now 13.4 kilobytes. Success. So as you can see, it's slow gains. It can be very time consuming depending on how complicated your image is. But if you're within the ballpark of the 15 kilobyte range, like within about kind of 20, 25, you should be able to reduce the file size enough by following the methods that I showed you there. So that's a fairly rapid summary of all of the tools and techniques that I use to get my images into Gran Turismo 7. There's a lot to consider and a lot still that wasn't covered in this video. So if you have any questions or want to know more about how to get your images into Gran Turismo 7, please let me know down in the comments below. I'm Clark, this is Puka GT. Thanks for watching.
Please like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe.